The brain, the gut, the heart, and the nervous system are being shown to be the predictors of our health. If having real health is of interest to you, please listen to learn more, and welcome to the Brain Gut Connection podcast. Your host, Dave Bredhauer, will guide you through how everything inside us is connected, from our brain to our heart to our gut, how they all communicate, and how important your immune system is to this entire process. The Brain Gut Connection podcast. Let us get right into today's episode.
It's time for a quick gut check, literally. Have you ever wondered if there's a direct line from your brain to your gut? Spoiler alert, there is. And we've got all of the inside scoop waiting for you in the Brain Gut Connection newsletter. Every month, we dive deep into the stuff no one else is talking about, or maybe they just don't have the guts to. We're covering the real deal behind what's happening in that brain-gut highway, unpacking the science, the myths, and the little tricks that can make you feel a whole lot better. You'll find answers to questions like, is my gut messing with my mood? Or can what I eat last night really affect my focus today? Spoiler alert, again, it can. So, if you're ready to keep your brain and gut in harmony and maybe discover why they argue sometimes, head on over to www.braingutconnect.com/subscribe to sign up for the Brain Gut Connection newsletter. Your brain, your gut, and trust me on this, your whole body will thank you. Go on, give your gut a break. Hey everybody, I want to welcome you back to the podcast, Brain Gut Connection. Today, we have the pleasure of chatting with Kate DeCosta, a powerhouse in gut health and wellness. With her extensive background as a certified health coach and Reiki master, Kate has dedicated her life to helping others navigate their health journeys. She's the author of Gut Feelings and the creator of the Healthier and Happier Gut Academy. Get ready to discover the vital link between your gut and brain and how you can take charge of your health today. Good morning, Kate. Welcome to the show. Looking forward to our
Dave.
conversation.
So good to see you. Thank you so much. Appreciate the introduction. So I am a certified health coach and Reiki master. That kind of came about after being an esthetician for over 20 years and from my own health struggles as a young person. It just kind of naturally progressed. When I was in my early 20s, I had some, pretty traumatic events happen. And so based on that and some other symptoms that I was having, like kind of uncontrollable anger and mood swings, I got diagnosed as being bipolar 2 and, was heavily medicated for over a decade. And along that time, I started having some major gut issues. Like went to the doctor, they told me to go to the gastroenterologist, couldn't figure out what was going on with me, got tested for celiac, had all of these tests done and they still couldn't figure out what was going on with me. And it got to the point that as an esthetician, I was having a lot of trouble, kind of making a fist and having power behind my fist because I had so much inflammation. I had carpal tunnel and I was wearing braces up to my elbows every night. It was pretty scary because I didn't know what was going on and the doctors couldn't tell me what was going on. And so I just kind of deep dived into what could be the issue. I had, a lot of bowel issues. I was running to the bathroom all the time, never could figure out what was really setting me off. And then I happened to talk to one of my sisters about this, and she was like, oh, I had something similar. Here, try doing an elimination diet. And that kind of brought about me trying an elimination diet and seeing if I had any undiagnosed food sensitivities. And lo and behold, I did. And it was pretty amazing once I took out the foods that were really causing me issues, which for me personally, the three biggest ones were wheat or gluten and corn and oat were huge for me. And I actually, the anger that I would get came from having corn. And there's something called corn rage, which I was not aware of. And holy moly. Now, if I have any, like, it's very apparent, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but, it's just remarkable the steps that were taken. Once I took those things out, I just really, the inflammation in my body just chilled out. I didn't have carpal tunnel anymore. I didn't have, joint pain in my hands anymore. My moods were a lot more calmer and stuff. And even my therapist and I talked about me, coming down off of my medications. And I've actually been medication free for over 8 years now.
Right.
And that's with, having kids and dealing with postpartum and stuff like that. It definitely was a very big learning curve, how to deal with my emotions and my moods without having, the safety net of a medication to kind of dull everything. But, I worked extensively with therapists to, be able to deal with that. And I can say that I feel so much better now not being on those medications because I actually have the full spectrum of all of my emotions instead of them being dulled. But also, I don't have, the physical issues that I was having when having those foods that were triggering so much inflammation, and not just in my gut, but because the gut and the brain talk so much to each other, that are very intricately connected. I was getting a lot of neuroinflammation. And so that's where a lot of my symptoms were stemming from.
So I want to take you back. You mentioned the word esthetician, right?
Yes.
So I think females on the audience would understand that. Guys probably don't. Can you,
Okay.
can you explain
So
what that's
it's a skincare specialist. So I work with skin.
right?
And interestingly enough, when I started having those gut issues, not, shortly after, I got discoloration all over my face, hyperpigmentation, a specific one called melasma, which is, also called the pregnancy mask, and it's hormonally related. And I got it in the wintertime. I had switched birth control pills because at the time I was, on that, but it was, as a skincare specialist, it was very embarrassing to, want to be promoting good skin and stuff, and yet mine, I had to camouflage every day because it was so bad.
So what I've learned in my own personal journey here is I used to have really bad eczema.
Mhm.
I mean, my whole back would be this red mask. I'd go down to Cancun for spring break, and I'd come back and I'd be gone. And I never fully understood what was going on. And then discovered that skin issues aren't really treatable on the outside; they're
Mhm.
treated from the inside out.
Mhm. Mhm.
When I discovered my food sensitivities, gluten and broccoli, thank God, and I removed those from my diet, my skin is not cleared up. I don't have this massive back issue, but I do still have patches on my forearms and a couple patches above my buttocks, if you will, and my butt. Uh, and I've gone down a number of rabbit holes to eliminate them, and my story won't bother to get into, but I think I know it's a result of my adrenals are burnt out, living in a
Mhm.
fight or flight response my entire life,
Mhm.
which causes this hormone dump, et cetera, right? But
Yeah.
it's for me, it was a real aha moment that you mean what I'm eating is causing the outside issues? That was for me, and I want to bring it up to our listeners that's something that if you have a skin issue, most likely you should look at the foods you're eating, right?
Absolutely. I also, when I was 2 years old, I was diagnosed with psoriasis as well. So for me, like my gut and the health of my gut and the health of my skin absolutely go hand in hand. And I know when I've had things that I shouldn't be having because I get a flare up of psoriasis, which normally is very much in check. And like I don't have to do, when I was in high school, I was a little bit later, I was doing phototherapy and doing UVB lights at the dermatologists and stuff. So I didn't have psoriatic arthritis, although when I started having those issues with my joints, that was the first thing I thought of, and I was like, oh God, like because that can be very debilitating for a lot of people, and so it was they definitely go very much hand in hand. And I don't think people necessarily appreciate just how much they do. And, if you don't like say the liver spots that you're getting on your face or the hyperpigmentation to really look at your health gut and what you're eating and whether or not you're, feeding your body healthy foods that are safe for it or whether or not you're feeding foods that are inflaming it.
Yeah, one of my triggers is pineapple. And back when I was younger, lifting heavy weights, training 5, 6 days a week, 2 or 3 hours a day. I would eat massive amounts of protein, and then I'd make up a box of Kraft mac and cheese. And then for dessert, have a can of pineapple for the bromelain, right? It helps your
Mhm.
digestion.
Mhm.
Fast forward to when I started going down these rabbit holes and discovered my food sensitivities, one of which is pineapple, which killed me because I would love to have a pineapple. If I get just a hint of it today, my forearms just explode. I mean, it's like unbelievable. That's how sensitive my gut is to stuff. And I've
Yeah.
learned also that even though I was given a food sensitive test probably 15 years now, and the foods I was sensitive to, I know today I can add more foods to that list because I've had a couple of types of foods where I only rented it, right? I put it in my mouth and then 15 minutes later it's passed. Uh, and that's very uncomfortable if you're in a public setting and all of a sudden you got to, run to the bathroom. Uh, and it's all because of this my sensitive gut, if you will.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think I'm too sensitive, if there's such a
Yeah.
because I always prided myself on having an iron gut. I'd rub my Ritz crackers in the dirt when I was a kid. Unbeknownst to me, that was a good thing, right? You want to pick up all the bad bacteria, the good bacteria, and you get it from everywhere.
Yeah.
But today, I I think I've got a healed gut to the point where I'm sensitive to a lot of things. I don't know if that's good or bad.
Mhm. Yeah, for me, I was in my 20s when this was going on. And so I was in the dating scene and, going out and having some drinks, super embarrassing because I remember one time in particular where I thought I had food poisoning because I was so sick, but it was hours later. And I'm like, I didn't even drink that much. This isn't, this isn't, it was just, and I was throwing up. I was going to the bathroom. It was just bad news. I had to call out from work. It was not good. And, I never knew when it was going to hit. And so I was just like, oh, am I going to the bathroom? Like it's super embarrassing and to be like, hi, do you want to go out on a date with me?
Yeah. Yeah, I tell a story. I don't know what it was I ate, but I put my date in the car, her car, and she left. I got in my car, and I hadn't even pulled on the road, and I just had severe stomach cramps. It took me 20 minutes to get home, but it passed in 15. I joke. I got home in time to clean. There was no mess, but I joke there was a mess. But yeah, I mean, I'm amazed at how back in the day, I'm sure I had reactions to it
Yeah,
but they weren't as demonstrative, if you will.
yeah.
Uh, and maybe they were. I was just so out of touch with myself that
Mhm.
I was clueless, if you will. Uh,
Yeah. When I was a teenager, my parents thought I just had a really bad case of the teenage years, but and I remember kind of like it's almost surreal what would happen to me what happens to me when I have corn is like it's almost like I can see the whole scene unfolding and stuff, but I myself don't have any control over myself anymore. And so it's like I'm watching a movie, but I'm the leading role in the movie. And it's like but I don't have control over myself and the anger. And I see and I hear what's going on. And I don't want to be saying the things that I'm saying, but I'm have so much anger that
wow.
I can't control. And I remember like afterwards, after like calming down and stuff and just feeling so bad and like crying to my parents and being like, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know, like, and I didn't understand and stuff. And, my heart kind of breaks because it didn't have to be like that. But nobody, I mean, this was in the 90s. Nobody knew any of this stuff back then,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. I mean, it's crazy given what I've been through my own life, looking back. I mean, I was raised to eat the diet that my parents ate, that their parents ate, etc. and
Mm,
discover today that's not necessarily the right diet. Uh,
right.
and so you mentioned you would have a drink and then have a reaction. What were you drinking that was giving you the reaction? Whiskey?
Uh, no, like beer. I would just go like, have like a Blue Moon or something. And because, it's got the gluten in it and the wheat because it's an unfiltered wheat beer.
Oh,
It's like, I mean, my stomach, I would literally look like I was 6 months pregnant. And I would like me and my friends would like joke about it because it would get so
wow,
swollen and so gassy. It was just, it would be very, very hard. And
wow.
it was just, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, my drinking days, I'm going to date myself here. PBR, Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Yep.
I've never had a micro brew beer
Mhm.
in my life. I stopped drinking before those became very popular. Uh, I did not know that. I guess is IPAs is that's the popular drink.
Yeah, I think so. I don't like hoppy drink. I don't drink them anymore anyways, but I was never a fan of the hoppy beers. They're just not my thing.
Yeah, I I'm done with. Spent too many years in the bottom of a bottle. Don't wish to go back there. So
I understand.
yeah, and I'm better off for it, right?
Yeah.
The time and energy you waste, the money you waste. But that's for a different, a different subject. So let's get back to you mentioned hormonal health a little
Yeah.
bit. Let's
Yeah.
talk about hormonal health and how it relates to our gut.
Well, so, when your gut is off, you actually have um, a kind of microbiome specifically for estrogen, and it's the estrobiome is what it's called, and it's specific to estrogen. And if your gut is off, it actually creates the environment where the excess estrogen that your liver converts into a safer estrogen to be expelled through your digestive tract. It doesn't happen. It actually gets recirculated and changed back into, the more active form of estrogen, I guess you could say. And so, when you have estrogen dominance, which a lot of women and men nowadays too, unfortunately, because of so many, xenoestrogens from plastics and stuff like that in our environment, when your liver and your gut are off, they aren't working as well as they should be to remove all of the hormones that need to be removed. And so it just gets recirculated in your body. And I really think that because my gut was so off and, having the issues with the food sensitivities and stuff, that is why my face, I got the hormonal mask, the melasma on my face, because when I really concentrated on cleaning up my diet, and it took years, and I mean years, and I still in the summertime, if my gut health is a little off, maybe I've had too much sugar or something, then like I'll still get like a little kind of darker spots in some areas, but it's, before it was literally all over my forehead, all right here on above my lip and then on my chin.
Wow.
And so it was pretty bad. And actually I have a before and after picture of me with the melasma. And now I think it was like 2 years ago that I took a picture of myself. So there's like a side by side, literally, and I think it's maybe 6 or 7 year span between the two,
Wow.
where finally, and it was fading and fading and fading, but it just for it to finally completely go where I didn't have to put on makeup every day to camouflage and stuff, it took a long time for that to happen because I didn't know for a long time what was going on. And doctors didn't either. And so it was very much trial and error and stuff. And so that's why I came out with the book. That's why I came out with the program, because for me, it took so long. And I love this stuff. This is the stuff that I geek out on, but it took, like not the average person maybe doesn't. And so that's not their forte. And so imagine being the average person not wanting these things, but having similar situations or similar things happening to them. This is an easy way for them to kind of get a little bit of guidance to recognize, hey, this could be what's going on with you, and address that in a way that'll help heal themselves. So that's kind of my go-to, is just to try to help people, so that they're not in the same position that I was in for as long as I was in.
Yeah, a couple of things I want to touch on. Going back to the hormones. So one of the issues we have in this country, right, is obesity.
Hmm.
Growing up as a kid, I remember there were some obese people, but you didn't see them everywhere.
Hmm.
And coupled with, I again going back, trying to remember back many, many years, decades, what did we look like? I don't remember walking around seeing a lot of men with what they call man boobs.
Yeah.
Today, and as we're talking here, my mind's racing here. You got to wonder. I mean, hormones are all endocrine disruptors, and given the fact that we swim in this chemical rain shower, how much of that, you mentioned men having estrogen on
Yeah.
unhealthy levels, how much of that is playing into the obesity?
Well, you think about how a lot of people eat processed foods, and not that there's for a lot of people, there's definitely a time and a place for it. Sometimes give my kid mac and cheese. Like, I'm not one of those people that's like, nope, you can only have whole foods for the rest of your life and that's it. That's not really realistic, and that in itself is kind of a disorder too. Um, I believe in the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the time you're, immaculate, and 20% of the time you get to go have fun at the barbecue, or, whatever it is,
Sure.
and live life. But there's a lot of soybean oil in processed foods, and soy is very well known for having estrogen mimicking, hormone disruptors in it. So I have to wonder that, mixed with, also the fact that I think people just aren't quite as active as they used to be as well. I think it's not just one thing. I think it's kind of a multifaceted thing, between the plastics, between just the environmental toxins that we're taking in, and then the types of foods or food-like products that we're eating, and then also that we're more sedentary than we used to be. And I think that definitely has a huge factor on it, because estrogen is stored in fat tissue. So the more you weigh, the more estrogen you hold in your fat tissue. So it's kind of like a huge cycle. And at some point, either you get very sick or you break out of it. And unfortunately, I don't know as too many people are aware of these things, and how much their doctors are actually talking to them about that. Because while doctors are great and have a place in, obviously our healthcare, a lot of the time they don't know quite as much about nutrition, because they're not taught that. They have to think of all of the other things, that go along with being a doctor, not necessarily the nutrient aspect of food. And, to follow up with people on, okay, how are you doing with your diet and stuff? And that's where a health coach comes in and can really help bridge that gap between, your doctor telling you that you need to, lose 30 pounds, and, that maybe you're a guy and you do have man boobs or something, like, that you need to start cleaning things up. Otherwise, you're going to have major issues further on down the road. And, a health coach kind of bridges that gap and is like, okay, this is what we're dealing with. This is what your doctor wants you to do. This is what you want to do as well. Then let's come up with a game plan on how to, get the results that you're looking for.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I many, many years ago, I used to go to something called the Senior Nationals. It was the end of the year, end of the season powerlifting competition. Whoever won their weight class would go on to the Worlds.
Mhm.
And I'll never forget this lightweight lifter comes in one day, has his shirt off. He's walking around the platform and he had man boobs. I mean, that was because of the misuse of testosterone or steroids.
Yeah.
But that creates estrogen, right? So, yeah. And you mentioned people not being problem aware. And I think that's one of the reasons I have my podcast, is to bring people hopefully awareness that they might have a problem, take them from problem unaware to problem aware, right?
Mhm.
And then having people like you who can help them go from solution unaware to solution aware, right? It's an educational system. So hopefully people listen to the podcast, have questions about their own health. Hey, there might be a problem I have. Someone like yourself comes on, talks about what you can deliver for them. Hey, maybe there's a solution. I'm unaware of a solution. She's got the solution. So that's self a self plug here, self promotional moment for the podcast. That's what
Yeah.
we do is we turn people from problem unaware to problem aware, solution aware to solution aware, and we do that with people like Kate here. Uh, so let's. You mentioned your program,
Hmm.
the healthier and happier gut academy, correct?
Hmm.
Let's dive into that. What exactly is that all about?
So that takes, topics that I kind of touch on a little bit in the Gut Feelings book that I have and kind of deep dives into it a little bit more. It's well, it's self-paced, but it's 4 modules with, different lessons and videos and handouts and stuff in the modules. And it really just is a great way for people to get more information and more knowledge on different aspects. Like, okay, I want to take some probiotics. I don't know which ones to take. Which ones are going to be best for me? So I have a lesson where like we go over the probiotics and the most popular ones and which ones they're good for and which ones which ones are better for constipation, which ones are better for diarrhea, things like that. I also have a lesson on the stress and cortisol and the effects of that. I have lessons on the effects of heavy metals on brain health as well. Healthy fats and how they impact brain health as well. Because I don't know about you, but growing up, everybody wanted to have low fat or no fat. And I'm like, no, you need fat. You need fat. Your brain literally feeds on fat. My dad's got Alzheimer's now. Like I literally deal with this in a lived situation. So it's very dear and near to my heart. And I tried to give people more knowledge and resources so that they can make better choices for themselves and for their families. I also include in the course the elimination diet as well. And so I talk about the elimination diet, and I actually made up a journal for people that's, just a digital version of it, but it's got, I think, like 30 or 60 pages or something that you can, like, track everything, how you're feeling, how much water you're drinking, what you're eating and stuff. And so it's an easy way for people to kind of get more familiar with their body and how it responds to the different foods that they're eating, because I think a lot of people are very much disconnected and just kind of, especially, and not that I've never done this myself, but you're just kind of like sitting in front of the TV mindlessly eating and not even being aware of anything and being like, oh, okay, well, I'm full now, I'm not going to eat anymore. But do you even know what you just ate? And I'm guilty of that. I used to be like that. I used to do that all the time. And it wasn't until I got very sick that it was like, oh, okay, we need to change this because that's not working for my body anymore. And like, I get very sick if I don't listen to it. So that's that. End of story.
Yeah.
So I kind of bring people back into awareness of things like that. Like, okay, what are you eating? And are you getting good sleep? And, things that people don't realize have an effect on your gut health. And so just kind of getting that information to them in easy, digestible format so that they don't feel like they have to have a MD or a PhD to be able to take my course. I made it specifically so that people could easily learn from it, and it was easy to follow along and get also still really good information and some, really good foundational groundwork to have better gut health.
So you mentioned it's a 30-day program?
It's self-paced, so people can really take as long as they need to, but it's 4 modules long. So each module you takes about a week. People can take longer or they can take shorter. It just depends on how much time everybody has, because I mean, I deal with a lot of busy moms and stuff, so that's kind of what I cater to. It's like, all right, if you can do it in this amount of time, great. And if you have to take a little bit longer, great. Whatever works for you, but as long as you're, working towards having a better gut health and a better life overall, then I'm happy.
So you mentioned the word probiotics.
Yeah.
I don't think people really understand about probiotics. You go to the store, you pull a probiotic off the shelf. Some are refrigerated, some aren't.
Yep.
Uh, Almost all of them, and I'm going to mispronounce it, lactobacillus,
Yep.
or that's the most
Lactobacillus. Yeah.
that seems to be the most common. And yet we've
Hmm.
got over, well, do we really know how many bacterial strains are in our gut? Right? Thousands, right? Uh, and we seem to just take the one. Is that really enough to foster a healthy biome?
I actually don't like taking just one, and I like rotating them. And like I said, depending on what you have, depends on like what your issues are, depends on which one's going to be the better fit for you at that time. So, say you have something called SIBO, which is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. You don't want to be having lactobacillus in your diet right now because it's just going to feed that bacteria that's come out, like that's in a place where it's not supposed to be. So you want it's S. buldari, which is better for SIBO, actually, in particular. And ask me how I know this, but
Curious
because
on
it's
that.
something I dealt with. So, it's just something that I really find very helpful. And so I wanted to bring that to other people because, when I go to the store myself, I'm like, which one? And is it okay if it's shelf stable? And and if it's confusing for me, imagine how it is for somebody who has no idea. And the doctor's just like, oh, go get some culturelle. And that's a great starting place. But again, if you have something called SIBO, that may not be the best probiotic for you. So I just want to bring awareness to that and, have people make the best choices for them.
So we talked about problem unaware. So what are some signs that someone should be paying attention to that would indicate they have a gut problem? You mentioned a distended belly.
Yeah, gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, brain fog actually is a big one, hormonal issues. Um, I mean, like there's so many, if you get headaches, I know I had a friend that was getting migraines every time it snowed or rained, and they eliminated gluten and they don't get, and they've been getting migraines since they were like 11 years old, and they eliminated gluten and no longer get migraines.
Yeah,
And
amazing.
whenever they have gluten again, then they get a migraine. So it's pretty powerful. And I think people really underestimate how important it is.
So you mentioned the corn rage. So I'm an angry guy.
Mhm.
I'm not, but I used to be. I'm not now. But so someone who's angry and they get angrier after they've had a bag of corn chips,
Yep, they could very much so from the inflammation.
or
Hmm.
they're easy going, easy peasy, lemon squeezy kind of people, and then they have ear corn, and all of a sudden they start throwing it against the wall. That would be an indication that there's an issue with corn.
I would say so. Yeah, that it could be. Again, this is why it's important to do to, kind of that's why I like the elimination diet because you're documenting. Okay, and then you can see patterns in what you're eating and how you're feeling. Because again, people can be very disconnected from the foods that they eat. And corn can be in so many different things and we don't even realize it. And it's like, it comes across as different ingredients like maltodextrin, dextrose, citric acid, ascorbic acid. Like there's so many different derivatives that are corn derived that people don't even realize. And so unfortunately, I have to read a lot of labels, but also it forced me to eat more whole foods and stuff, which inevitably made me healthier. So it's not always bad. It's not always fun either, because trust me, I do miss having chips and salsa, but they do have, cassava chips. So they do have alternatives if you want to, avoid corn in general and stuff. And it's just, I really encourage that. That, and if you're having foods that have a lot of food dyes in them, especially like food red number 40 is a big one. I know my kids this Halloween, and pretty much every Halloween they're a little off the wall because they're not used to having that type of food. And then they have it for Halloween. And it's like, even just the other day, the kids had lollipops because my son got his hair cut. And I was like, okay, you guys are having meltdowns now. And my daughter was bouncing off the walls, literally. I'm like, okay, do you guys see today how much calmer you were than yesterday? And yesterday you had the lollipops and today you didn't, and see how you're able to handle your emotions better and stuff. And so just, kind of, again, making people aware of how their body reacts to the foods that they eat.
Yeah, my kids are 30 and 28. So again, dating myself when they're little and you go into school and the kids would be bouncing off the wall, we blamed it on sugar, right? They got sugar. They're going to overstimulate and stuff. Today, right, with all we know about the chemicals in the food, you mentioned corn. Thank you for that. You gave me a great idea for a social post around corn. Uh, what it's the food they're eating? Is it the chemicals in the air? Is it the chemicals in their skin? It's not just the sugar in their gut. There's other factors at play that again we're problem unaware.
Well, and the candy nowadays, a lot of it is high fructose corn syrup or just corn syrup. So it's not even necessarily sugar. So if they have problems with corn, which a lot of people do and they don't realize it, then that's a whole nother factor into it too.
Yeah, this is I'm really glad we talked because the corn thing, uh, it's a grain I don't try not to eat it myself, and I was aware that it's the most engineered what's the term? It's the most engineered food, also the most
Crop.
product out there.
Yeah.
All the stuff, I mean, plastics have corn in it, right?
Hmm.
It's crazy where your hair has corn in it. How
If you have
how
a gas stove, it's got corn. There's a corn derivative that makes that smell when you turn on the gas so that you know that the gas is
yeah,
on,
it's
like
on.
corn
Yep.
derived.
Yeah,
Like it's insane.
and it's everywhere.
Toothpaste everywhere, everywhere.
Yeah, and the whole fructose corn syrup, I discovered this going down the rabbit holes. We have Earl Butz, uh, the ag secretary under Nixon, to thank for that. Somebody brought it to him. This is in dense calories. We can feed a world feeding them high fructose corn syrup because it's got an overabundance of calories compared to everything else. So
Mhm.
that's good. And then of course we push it out and quickly discovered, I don't know how many years it was in the food system before we discovered that it's not as good as people think. Uh,
Mhm.
again, the stuff that's more or less kind of forced upon us. So let's go back to your program. Can you share one of your more successful stories with us?
One of my favorites is the person that I was mentioning that they were having gluten and had heard about the elimination diet before that and hadn't tried it, but finally, after speaking with me and, us having conversations, being like, all right, that's it, I'm doing it. And, lost weight, recommended the book called Wheat Belly. I forget the doctor who wrote that, but it's a
Oh,
fabulous book. Yeah.
you,
Yeah. So recommended that to them. And then they eliminated it, and just how much better they feel and how much better they look. And they just ran a marathon and stuff. So that's one of my favorites, is that, they don't have migraines anymore. They're running marathons. They're doing great things for themselves now, and really, like, the brain fog's a lot better and stuff. And so it's really, I have to say that's one of my favorites, just because it's so profound and just so, I mean, think about how many people are on medication for migraines and stuff. And how simple would it be if it was just like, oh, okay, I'm sensitive to this food. Let me remove it. And oh, magically, I don't need to be on, pharmaceuticals anymore for my migraines. That would be phenomenal.
but I want my corn chips.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. We're a crazy species. So you mentioned Wheat Belly. It's interesting. He was out of Milwaukee. I forget Fox Point is the community, not too far from where I was living when I was in the area. Uh, another book I found to be a wealth of knowledge. Two books. One is Grain Brain,
Hmm.
Perlmutter, and then another one. Two doctors. It's called Dangerous Grains. Both doctors proclaim that they've cured an illness. One, rheumatoid arthritis.
Mhm.
All his patients who come in showing signs of rheumatoid arthritis, he takes them off grains and the pain goes away. He
Mhm.
believes it's criminal that people who have the gnarling, you can't remove that. So once they get the gnarling and the crooked hands and stuff, he says he believes that's a criminal act because doctors are supposed to do no harm and the doctors don't bother to learn. And then the other guy, he believes he's cured lupus, and that's by removing grains from your diet. Simple as that,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And how many
I
women?
believe it because the how bad my hands were, I can't even like it. I literally like I would have trouble holding a toothbrush. Trouble holding a toothbrush because I
Wow,
couldn't.
wow.
It was just so
And
I absolutely believe that.
and how old were you when this is going on?
I was my late 20s.
20s. Wow, wow. The way
Yeah.
you discovered it young, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people go through their life uh,
Hmm.
complaining about this issue, that issue, the medication, the doctor's bills. And again, if you just remove possibly one or two things, maybe more, how much your life would change, how
Yeah.
much it would change. Okay, so I got one final question for you. So what's next for you in your journey as a health coach and wellness advocate? What do you have on?
Um, so I am going to be start doing group coaching because for me, like I said, I really just want to get the information out there to people, help as many people as possible. And I've found for myself group coaching to be very helpful when I've done it, with a business coach and stuff like that. And even just talking with other people, I've found that, when I have a lot of aha moments listening to other people talk about their experience and being like, oh, I'm not alone. Or, oh, they have this issue too. Or, hey, I didn't realize that that was a thing and that this is related to this. And it's all by having community with these other people. And I really feel that when you're in a group setting and you start heal, like, you're being authentically yourself and talking about your experiences and you're healing yourself by having these aha moments and taking these steps to better yourself and stuff that it as a whole group the whole group heals with you. It's not just I believe it's very synergistic, and so I'm going to be starting that soon and I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, looking
Hmm.
forward to it. Okay, well, Kate, I want to thank you for your time. It's been a great conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation together, and I look forward to hearing more about you in the coming months ahead.
Thanks, Dave. Likewise.
So I'm going to close the show. Thanks very much for all my listeners out there. I hope someone listens to this whole podcast in its entirety and gets value and goes from being problem unaware to problem aware. And if you need a solution, there she is. Okay, thanks everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. Want to reach out to Kate? You can contact her at integratewithkate@gmail.com, her website, integratewithkate.net. Don't miss your chance to transform your health with Kate's guidance.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Brain Gut Connection podcast. Stay connected with us directly through www.braingutconnect.com. You can also join the discussion on Instagram at Brain Gut Connection and YouTube. If you would like to speak with us, please send us an email to dave@braingutconnect.com. And as always, thank you for listening. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Until next time, stay happy, healthy, and educated.